It's time for Pacers Knicks Game 2. What changes do the Pacers need to make or focus on heading into a new game? They all had a lot of the same answers on the matchups, right, for the Pacers on defense. What else can you expect adjustment-wise? We'll get to all of it today on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, y'all? Happy Friday. Congrats, you made it through the week, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes, and today I am in my New York hotel room. It's very late. It's been about 24 hours since the end of Game 1. I still can't believe it. I highly encourage you to watch the fourth quarter if you can to see how that happened. What did the Knicks do? What did the Pacers do? Is this real? Yes, it's real. The Pacers won the game. They're up 1-0 in the series. And Game 2 tonight, a chance for the Pacers to do what they just did to the Cavs, go on the road and win both games to open a series. A huge opportunity. They know it. It was very important against Cleveland. It would be just as important in the series, if not more so, with the rising tension and increased quality of opponent that they are now facing in this round. They won the game. They never do apologize for that. They're up 1-0. They did lose to the Cavs after their epic win against them last round, which leads to the next question and what this entire premise of today's podcast is. What do the Pacers need to do better? Right? It's very exciting for a team to win a game in the playoffs, period. It's more so exciting to win like that with an insane last couple minutes that masked a bad fourth quarter to that point. They don't have to worry about that. They won the game. They do have to worry about why it was so bad and what else went wrong throughout the game, because they shot 70-something% for a long time in this one. They were shooting in the 60% for a while, and they were still losing at the end of the first quarter. And from the beginning of the second quarter, basically with about 8-9 minutes to go until the overtime, they were never winning, right? Again, the result, great. Pacers will take it. But they have a lot to clean up on, right? They still have a long gap between what they hope can happen and what did happen in Game 1. And Game 2 is a chance for them to make some changes to make that better, which is interesting because I think, and I said this already once, that they will walk away from Game 1 in part a little bit happy with their offense and the success that they had on that end of the floor. I think both teams will, and we'll get to the Knicks side of this in a second, but the Pacers were playing great offense to start this game, right? The first quarter that I just mentioned, they shot 74%, and that wasn't even hot three-point shooting. Like, they made 11 of their 12 twos in that quarter, kept the turnovers down, right? It felt early like, oh, their offense is going to be great. In this game, they generate good shots, and their quality of looks and obviously their accuracy is not going to hold at that level like it kind of did, I guess, in Game 7 last year. But eventually that's going to fall back to earth, and it did. They shot 51% for the game. That's still very good. But it still was clear through that quarter and for much of the game that they were going to be able to get good looks if their tempo stayed. And it did, largely, right? Nesmith's late flurry, a big factor, but he shot it well. Siakam, 7 for 16. Myles Turner made his first 5 shots, which helps, but he was 6 for 11. Tyrese Haliburton was 12 for 23. Andrew Nembhard shot 60%. Every bench player shot 40% or better, except for Thomas Bryant, who was 1 for 3. Right? Everybody had good to great looks and made them. And I think the Pacers will hope that can continue because, one, but two, they've done it all playoffs, right? That was the story of their series against the Bucks. They got great shots every single possession. Against the Cavs, a little less so. It's still great shots, and they won both of those series. I think right now they'll walk away from Game 1, despite some clunkier moments after a hot start, going, yeah, our offense is good. We're happy with the offense. They know they can get into their tempo. Even though it felt like the Knicks were able to get their own tempo on offense too, the Pacers set their own terms of engagement offensively, got good shots, 37 high-quality threes, 28 free throws, only 7 turnovers, all stuff they'll be happy with. So much of the stuff that I will consider today as key points of emphasis, let's say, for Game 2 for the Pacers are either defensively focused, strategically focused, rotationally focused, whatever category you want to put this stuff into. And then we'll just run through some notes from Game 1 that just got completely lost in the shuffle because I don't know if you noticed, but it was a completely insane basketball game. The thing that not me people have talked about are the obvious things, but still absolutely worth refreshing, right? And that is the players have all said at various times one of these 3 or 4 things. One, in terms of adjustments, rebounding It wasn't terrible. It wasn't good. Final rebounding count was Pacers 39, Knicks 46. That bucks a trend from last year where the winner of the rebounding battle won every game. Obi Toppin was great on the glass. He had 10. No one else in the Pacers had more than 5, right? They got to be better there. Whereas Hart and Towns had 12 each. Mitchell Robinson had 12 or more. Mitchell Robinson had 8, right? That we knew this would be a thing coming into the series. The Knicks are a good rebounding team, and I described this when I was talking about what makes their offense very good. And part of it is that they're so good on the glass. It gives them these chances, these extra chances, and in particular, high-quality chances. Deuce McBride, both his makes, I think, were off of second chance opportunities, right? That's what he's good at. That's what the Knicks are good at. This one is not anything necessarily tactical. It's not tactical, right? There is an element of this to running ahead on offense, getting back on defense, whatever. That is like, in theory, fighting with rebounding. However, sometimes rebounding is just fight. It's good box out technique, right? And in this game, the Pacers, especially against Mitchell Robinson, just got punked. Mitchell Robinson came in and immediately got 2 offensive rebounds, and everybody was like, oh boy, here we go. This is something the Pacers talked about leading into the series. That was going to be a problem. Mitchell Robinson was excellent in the first round. This might be a problem for them, and it was right away. And then they went to Thomas Bryant. They said, let's go with a better rebounder against this guy. Hey, that didn't work either. Thomas Bryant also struggled fighting on the glass with Mitchell Robinson, because everybody does. Mitchell Robinson's a really good player and really good rebounder. That's something the Pacers have to be better at, and that goes to everybody. It really starts with those guys, right? If you remember in my pre-series discussion, I talked about Hart. We'll get to him in a second, but the bigs have to be better. 5 boards for Turner, 5 for Siakam. Again, Toppin was fantastic, but they've just got to be better at fighting those guys down low, keeping them off the glass, whether it's tipping it, whatever it needs to be. It's a technique thing, and it's part of the Pacers' decisions on how they want to prioritize getting back or how they want to prioritize doing what they're doing, but they have to be better on the glass. And it starts with the bigs. It always does. But as I always say, and as I've really said with the Knicks being the Pacers' opponent, they are a good team rebounding team. And that's why Hart having 13 and Bridges having 6, 4 on the offensive end for Mikal Bridges, is another part of this. This is not just a big man stat. This is an everybody stat. Josh Hart took several assignments throughout the game, right, to open the game. The Pacers had Nembhard on him. At times, it was always different with different guys in and out of the floor. And like Josh Hart sometimes is the weak guy that the Pacers want to put somebody else on. But 13 is a lot from a guard / wing, whatever you want to call him. Pacers have to be cognizant of him. They know it. They said it before the series, right? Everybody knows it. He averages almost 10 a game for his height. But it's hard. He's a master of it for his position. They have to be ready for him. They cannot let Bridges do that kind of thing. Haliburton was on him sometimes. They mix and match that group, whoever was on who, right? That needs to be better. And that's one thing Tyrese can do better is on the glass. That is the first thing a lot of players talked about was the glass. And it ended up being only a 7 rebound difference, which 8 turnover difference in favor of the Pacers. The possession battle was in favor of the Pacers, actually. But they need to be better on the glass. And that is slightly the choices they're making strategically, but also is just kind of like fight, power. This would have been a leading topic almost had the Pacers lost the game because it was such a problem for them, especially early, right? When Mitchell Robinson was in there, like I said, he grabbed the 2 right away. At halftime, it was 23-19 on the glass, pretty close, but Mitchell Robinson had 3 all on the offensive end. I could go through the stats for forever. You know it if you saw the game. The Pacers just have to be better on the glass in game 2. Otherwise, if the Knicks take care of the ball better, right? Brunson had 7 turnovers, matching the Pacers himself. If the Pacers have more turnovers, that possession battle could get away from them. So much more. What else did the Pacers say they need to do better in game 2? And what do I think are some things they could consider changing in game 2? All that coming next here on Locked On Pacers. Before we get to any of that, we got to talk about FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances like Tyrese Haliburton, major momentum shifts and can't-miss moments, whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player like Aaron Nesmith. There's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big, like looking up who is showing up in the big moments. You could be tracking their trends to help you build your next bet. You could combine live prop bets mid-game based on how the action's unfolding. You got to read on who's heating up. Boom, why not back it up with the same game parlay? And how about $200 in bonus bets to add to the excitement if your first $5 bet hits? New to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com. Place your first $5 bet. If it wins, $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Back here on Locked On Pacers, thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. Locked On Knicks for listen number 2. Gavin Shaw from over there is going to join us between games 2 and 3 on this feed. We'll probably record that on Saturday. Looking forward to that. Keep you guys informed on both angles of the series. I'm sure Knicks fans, Gavin and Alex, crushed after that first game. The second thing we heard a lot from Pacers players after the rebounding was fouling, and specifically against two guys. I'm going to kind of split them up, but kind of not. Fouling. 40 free throws for the New York Knicks in this game. The Pacers took 28. I think that was an earned ratio. Like, I hate when people say, oh, they took 12 more free throws. It wasn't refereed correctly. Like, given the way the game was played and the physicality, I thought that was pretty close to about what it should have been in the game in terms of a ratio. 40 is a ton. 12 for Brunson, or 12 makes for Brunson, 14 attempts for Brunson, and 11 for Karl Towns. That's 25 between those two. The Pacers took 28. In some ways, the Pacers have upped their physicality level in the playoffs. They're not going to give up easy shots. They're going to make you work for it at the basket. That style is going to lead to free throws for great players. Ask Giannis, ask Donovan Mitchell in the first 2 rounds. They took a ton of free throws. That's just going to happen, right? There's some acceptance of that I think is a part of the wear-down effect that Pacers are talking about. That's a part of just the way they want to play. I'm going to push that to the side. I think that every game in this series, the Pacers will be fighting an uphill climb at the foul line. However, 40 is a lot. They've got to keep it down. 24 fouls for the Pacers in this game is just an absurdly high number, right? Regardless of who they're playing or what the emphases are. 5 fouls for Nesmith. He had Brunson a lot. 5 fouls for Nembhard. Guess who he had a lot? He had Brunson a lot. 2 or 3 for multiple other players, especially guys who had spent a lot of time on Karl Towns. They have to be better there. I get what fans' opinions are of some of these fouls. I have 1 or 2 that I'm like, I wouldn't have blown the whistle there as the refs. However, defending with hands happened too often. Getting punked by Towns with some physicality happened too often. That led to a foul. They have to just be better there. And that kind of goes hand in hand with rebounding. A lot of this stuff came on second chance baskets that you got a foul to stop an easy play. But the Pacers just need to be better there. 24 fouls have been tied for their, I can't do counting quick enough, but this looks like their 7th most in a game during the regular season, right? That is something they absolutely have to clean up in this game. And of course, it all starts with the 2 star Knicks players, but it doesn't end with those 2 guys. It's still 12 free throws for the rest of the roster, and it's not really one that you think of as guys who can draw fouls. 5 for Deuce McBride, 4 attempts for Anunoby. These are good physical players, and in Anunoby's case, good scorer. In McBride's case, right, fouling in general was a problem for the Pacers. And not only, of course, are you giving the team easy points and putting them on the line, you're breaking up the rhythm of the game. The Pacers want to play fast. You break up that rhythm. You're really hurting yourself. So it's hard to do. Like, it's not easy to just say, stop fouling the star players. But they acknowledged it as something that needs to go better, and I'm inclined to agree with them. So fouling in general, something the Pacers would like to be better at. Defend not with their hands, just in general. Cause problems without crossing the line. And that leads to the last thing we heard from players. They obviously will obfuscate what they think of what the adjustment should be. They don't want to spill anything into the opening and give the Knicks any advantages. However, what we saw or heard was defending those 2 guys better, just generically. I can't remember who said it. It was after the game. It was not today. But that just guarding Brunson better and Cat better was a focus. They combined for 78 points. They both shot 60% or better. They put Nesmith on Brunson. I mentioned that as a possibility before the series. It's not what I expected to happen. That's like what the start thing was, but lots of guys actually took that matchup, right? I appreciate that the NBA has matchup data so that we can look at it without just making that up, because Nembhard took him a lot, like I said. But in the game, he ends up, Nesmith's on him for 6 minutes. Nembhard was on him for about 3.5. And then a bunch of guys over a minute. Siakam just over a minute. Shepherd almost 2 minutes. Mathurin over a minute. Haliburton over a minute. A lot of guys got reps on him. Everybody among that group needs to do a little bit better at trying to keep him. These are not easy things to do. If any team could just flip a switch and do these things that I'm talking about, they would. But they need to be better staying in front of him. If they can, make his life a little bit harder. Because he got to shots very easily and slowly. Like, it wasn't even like he had some amazing burst of speed to get by anybody. He did a few times, He just kind of methodically took his screens and got to his spots. The Pacers have to be better against him. Towns was awesome too. Pacers had Turner on him. I wonder if that will continue to be the case throughout the series. But, Cat was awesome. 7 twos. He had half his threes. He took 11 free throws. He had 12 rebounds. They got to be a little more physical with him, I think, when he's taking some layups in the paint, and not physical to the point of fouling, but, just make it a little tougher there, because he had some two easy chances, and he was able to kind of, to his credit, push guys around, be kind of a beast in the paint. I think they can be better against him too. And then from a team level, this wasn't every time, but they did a lot of defending pick and rolls, especially with those two players, 2-on-2, right? Don't help too much out of their shell to stop that. And that's fine. I get why. Like, nobody else killed them on the whole Knicks team, which maybe it worked out. Like, Anunoby had 16 on 15 shots. Hart had 8 on 6 shots. Bridges had 16 on 16 shots. Like, big whoop in all those cases. Part of that's because they weren't willing to just let those guys go crazy. But maybe bring in a little more help, right? Make it a little tougher on those stars to see space or be able to get into moves that they like or comforting spots on the floor. All easier said than done. They have 2 all-NBA level dudes. It's not easy to just go like, yep, here's what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to stop these guys. But they mentioned it. And anything they say directly, I'm going to talk about, because, again, they're not going to go give a strategy in the conference finals between games, even though we all want to know and ask them, hey, you watched film. You guys were down 17 in the fourth quarter. Like, what do you feel like you should have done better? The list does not end there. That's just the stuff we heard from the Pacers specifically. So the game started and largely stayed like this. I did just mention that obviously it changed throughout the game with Siakam on OG, Haliburton on Bridges, Nembhard on Hart, Nesmith on Brunson, and Turner on Karl Towns. It wouldn't shock me if the Pacers tried to switch up a few things in there, but it's hard if they're going to have Nesmith on Brunson to really change things up, right? Nesmith on Brunson worked better last year than Nembhard on Brunson. But if you're married to that as the Pacers with Nesmith on Brunson, give him the size defender matchup. And if you take Turner off of Towns and put him on Hart, like a lot of teams have done, put their center on Hart, don't guard him, and then put a wing on Cat. If you put OG on Cat, then you have to put Nembhard, who was previous on Hart, on OG. That's a big size advantage to give up. If you put Nesmith on Cat, you could put Nembhard on Brunson and call it a day, I suppose. That's kind of what I thought the starting thing would look like. And you're obviously not putting Haliburton on Cat. So it's hard to switch without also changing the Brunson matchup to take Turner off of Cat. So I wonder if the Pacers will stick with what they did in game 1 and just hope to kind of do it better. But if they get beat by a lot of the same stuff, then maybe they change things up. I was a little surprised by the Nembhard on Hart assignment, but it's hard. Again, it's challenging. I mentioned the cross-matching often before the series because there are just a million ways it could go. And I mentioned a lot of stuff that could happen and did happen, but it was not what I predicted would happen. I got an ETL on that one. So credit the Pacers for some creativity, I suppose. They're the first team in this postseason to guard Cat with a center. It would not shock me if things continue to not go great defending Brunson or Towns if they switch that up a little bit. Maybe in the way I described, maybe not. But I was a little surprised by the fact that they went to that so quickly. They've got a little bit to change. Let's open the notebook. Some stuff that I thought was important or interesting in game 1 to keep an eye on in game 2, whether it's because it relates to a Pacers core strategy, whether it's a player who just had a stretch that I was like, ooh, that is scary or not scary as the Pacers, and so much more to close out today's Locked On Pacers. Back here on Locked On Pacers, thanks for making it your first listen today and every single day. Your second listen, Locked On Thunder. They're dominating the Wolves 2-0 in that series. 2 games from the finals for the Thunder. Wow, their defense is probably the best team on one side of the ball left in the playoffs. Compared to any team's offense or defense, that Thunder defense looks amazing. Rylan Stiles will have more on the MVP for Shea and the second win of the conference finals for the OKC Thunder. The Pacers did occasionally have possessions with Haliburton on Hart, especially in the second half. Brad, I already mentioned all the times that other guys were on Brunson. Like, stuff flowed differently throughout the game, even without changing lineups for them. I do wonder if they change that stuff up a little bit more in game 2. That's kind of what I went at when we talked to in a scrum setting around Carlisle today is, like, when they defend Brunson, when we talked a lot with other people before the Bucks series, a hot topic was defending Giannis. And it's not just put a guy on Giannis, that's it. Right? It's show him a bunch of different coverages, make him think and slow down throughout a game, right? And that was Tibbs' thing. Tibbs said that about defending Cade Cunningham, and I took it and ran and applied it to Giannis, and the Pacers did it very well. I think that applies to Brunson as well. You can't just throw one coverage at him all night and expect it to just keep working. So mixing up who's on him and how often and all this stuff is important. And so I think that bleeds into everybody switching matchups throughout a position. I would expect a little bit more variation in game 2. Nesmith got that assignment by far the most in game 1. He did fine, but it would not shock me if the Pacers just mix that up a little more, make him think even for split seconds. Let's run through tons of notebook things that I thought were noteworthy from game 1. A lot of these are negatives because we didn't talk about a lot of negatives so far because they won the game and had a crazy comeback that took up a ton of conversation time on this very podcast. The first one is something I already mentioned when talking about this game. Mitchell Robinson came in the game and just immediately changed everything, right? And people expected that he would be very important in the series, but that was just remarkable, right? He came in with 5:17 to go in the first quarter. The Pacers are up 3. Siakam hits a free throw after he subs in. They're up 4. Mikal Bridges misses a fadeaway jumper. Mitchell Robinson rebound. Turner fouls him, right? And he missed both free throws, which we'll get back to in a second. He missed both free throws. Next possession, Mikal Bridges scores. Then Mitchell Robinson, a block, helps with a rebound. Deuce McBride gets an extra chance. Mitchell Robinson gets another rebound, right? He was everywhere so quick. He got another offensive rebound off a Brunson miss like a minute and a half after that one I just talked about. His 3 offensive rebounds in the first half all came within 2.5 minutes of him checking in. And by the end of the quarter, the Knicks were right back at the game. He was a monster. His mobility's there. His rebounding, his effort is fantastic. He's someone that, despite having very little shooting ability, you have to pay attention to at all times. You can't just kind of give him space to do whatever they want. And his defense is better than he's given credit for. He's a really good player, and I think he changed the game in about the ways everybody expected. He's great. They brought in Thomas Bryant after some of those rebounds, right? Sometimes, go with this guy. Bryant for Turner comes with 4:01 to go. That was after the second offensive rebound for Robinson. He got another one basically right away, and Thomas Bryant scored in that stretch. It wasn't like a total 0, but it's just hard to stop him on the glass. He's very good, and it's not as easy as subs. He did miss those free throws, though. Would not shock me if he continues to be very impactful. If the Pacers do go to hack a Mitch, they didn't in this game. Rick Carlisle was asked about it before the game and said, stay tuned. Mitchell Robinson was 0 for 2 at the line in this one. Like, if you're trying to get the guy off the floor and he's a below 50% foul shooter in the playoffs, perhaps they go to that as a way to coax Tibbs to take him out of the game. Thomas Bryant actually scoring easy on some switches when he had Brunson on him, which was a good play from Thomas Bryant, to be clear. The Knicks, I think, are going to be a little more cautious about how much switching they're willing to do in game 2. That was part of the reason I thought the Pacers did a good job getting good looks, is when they solve switching defenses quickly, they just can get it to matchups fast or get into shots they like very quickly. I thought they did that in this game, and Thomas Bryant doing that was important, one, for his own success, but 2, eventually, finally, after a game of grinding, it became the case that Siakam, who's the master of this, finally got those chances, and he got up to his 16 shot attempts very slowly throughout this game, but 6 of them in the fourth quarter. And, so he had 10 the first 3. He really upped his volume because the Pacers finally figured out as the game kind of went on, and they got some more stops, and Siakam was more aggressive on getting him the ball against Smalls or getting him the ball in chances for him to score that are comfortable for him. Bryant doing that early was a sign that it could be a thing throughout the game, and it finally became one. Would not shock me if the Pacers tried to get going to that kind of stuff quicker. Siakam so good against Smalls at all times. The Pacers went to a press one possession where TJ McConnell was pressing Jalen Brunson, and this has been a thing for the Pacers. They pick up higher pressure than basically every team left. The Knicks were doing it in this game, but the Pacers did it a lot, obviously. McConnell took one screen while still in the backcourt, had to hustle back around it to get back to Brunson in the front court, and by then he took another screen, and Brunson just kind of wiggled his way into the paint, and there was an open dunk for the Knicks. I can't remember who it was. That's good stuff from the Knicks. Very good execution. A good way to counter that pressure with that really, really far out ball screen. And if you're the Pacers, you don't want to switch that immediately to start a possession. The Knicks are going to get baskets like that, right? So the balance of pressuring the Knicks the right amount or a varied amount, and the Knicks being ready for it and having good counters, I think will be a very interesting aspect of game 2. This was the thing I think that frustrated the Pacers, is they were not finishing defensive possessions. What I mean by that is they had so many plays where they would defend well for something between 18 and 22 seconds of defense and then bail the Knicks out by not getting the rebound or by fouling late in the clock or just there were a ton of things that had caused this to happen. It happened a bunch in the fourth quarter. First possession, they fouled Mikal Bridges in the corner, like with 1 on the shot clock. They found 3-point shooters left and right. Like, finishing possessions and defensive discipline, they aren't technically hand in hand, but they're close, are 2 things that I think the Pacers will be looking in the mirror at, like, man, like, that's like 10 points left on the table of just defend good for 1 more second and that possession looks totally different, or fight harder on the glass for, half a second, and that possession looks totally different. Keep an eye on that as something the Pacers will have a focus on. I have another note about Siakam crushing non-OG players. I already talked about that with the Thomas Bryant note. So in the end, the last thing I have is just the Pacers defense has to tighten up, right? The Knicks got so many drives, and they all led to something, right? Whether that was a chance for the Knicks to score at the basket or a kick out for an open three. They had 62 points in the paint, did the Knicks. These are just stray notes from the game, but they all led to something. And so even as the Pacers were scoring well to start the second half and kind of clawed their way back into it, they cut it to 1. They just couldn't get enough stops. And even when Brunson came out in that fourth quarter stretch, the Knicks kept scoring and expanded their lead, right? So I have one of my notes right after that just says, just need stops, do the Pacers, but they can't. They couldn't do it. And that is what would have been part of the story beyond the rebounding of why they lost the game. Is it was clear they needed stops to come back. They were scoring very well all night. They just couldn't get them until they got a bunch all in the same stretch. And Brunson had 2 straight, basically exactly the same pick and rolls with Bennedict, Mathurin guarding him to open the fourth quarter. He scored on both very easily, right? That's not on Mathurin necessarily. He could fight harder through the screens, I guess, but the Pacers have to be ready for that exact stuff. Yeah, he had the Knicks' first 2 baskets to open that frame, and Mathurin equaled them. Mathurin had 4 points himself, but that's something to keep an eye on. Not a Mathurin commentary point, just that the Knicks will keep doing the same thing over and over, especially with Jalen Brunson. If it leads to points, depending on who's on him, the Pacers just have to defend him better. That is the stuff to keep an eye on for Game 2. Can't wait. Garden's going to be rocking. Knicks need the win. Pacers will be riding a high coming into it. You never know how these games could go, but the Pacers will hope certainly that the answer is that it goes their way. You can find my story on Game 1 in Forbes and find me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Tony Ariz. This podcast has a Twitter and Instagram account. It's at Locked On Pacers in both places. Game 2 is going to be awesome. Can't wait. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We'll see you after the game.